Did you know there are two different hospice caps? How to calculate your average length of stay? Why do hospice cap reports change over time? I'm Richard Dixon, President of Dixon Healthcare Solutions. This program will answer those questions. Welcome to Managing Your Medicare Hospice Cap webinar. The photo on the screen is of my wife Margaret and I at a friend's home. Please feel free to email any questions you may have to richard@dixonhsi.com, or you may call me at 321-394-5722. You receive a 15-minute free consulting session with me just for watching this webinar. How I'm qualified to address this topic? I started working for the Medicare program way back in 1976. I was a Medicare auditor. I was a CFO for several large home health agencies and have been in the consulting business. I've basically sat in all the chairs and have over 40 years experience. My company prepares Medicare cost reports for hospices and home health agencies for a flat fee as low as $15.95. We also provide educational seminars and webinars. Today, we will cover how to manage your Medicare hospice cap. Our objectives include review of the inpatient hospice cap, review of the aggregate hospice cap, compare changes in the hospice cap, how to calculate your average length of stay, and why do hospice cap reports change over time. Number one, the inpatient hospice cap. During the hospice cap period, the aggregate number of inpatient days, both inpatient and respite, may not exceed 20% of the total hospice days provided. Payments for inpatient and respite hospice days that exceed 20% will deem to be a Medicare overpayment and must be repaid to the Medicare program. Now, I know most of you didn't realize that there was even an inpatient hospice cap. None of my clients has ever gone over this inpatient hospice cap. I just wanted to let you know that there is an inpatient hospice cap. Number two, aggregate hospice cap. This is the cap most of us are concerned about. The overall aggregate Medicare hospice payments made to a Medicare certified hospice are subject to an aggregate cap. The cap is calculated by multiplying the statutory cap amount by the number of Medicare beneficiaries in the cap period. The number of beneficiaries is determined by either the proportional method or the streamline method. Number three, the proportional method. For each hospice, the count of the number of Medicare beneficiaries counted is the fraction which represents the portion of the patient's total days of care in all hospices and all years that was spent in the hospice in this cap year. For example, if a patient spent 3 months in your hospice and 3 months in another hospice, your count would be 3 divided by 6, or you would count 1/2 of a patient. Number four, streamline method. There are about 200 hospices that still use this method, but you cannot choose this method any longer. In this method, the count includes those Medicare beneficiaries who have not previously been included in the calculation of any hospice cap and who have filed an election to receive hospice care from the hospice during the period beginning on September 28 to September 27. Now that would be, in this case, for our year, September 28th of 2019 through September 27th, 2020. Under the streamline method, when a beneficiary has received care from more than one hospice, each hospice includes in its number of Medicare beneficiaries only that fraction which represents the portion of a patient's total stay in all hospices that was spent in this hospice in this cap year. This method is only available to a hospice that previously elected this method. We estimate less than 200 hospices can utilize this method. 5. Hospice cap, aggregate cap. This is a national hospice cap. It is not wage index adjusted. So for cap year 10/1/19 to 9/30/20, it was $29,964.78. From 10/1/20 to 9/30/21, it's $30,683.93. Number 5, calculating your agency-specific routine home care daily rate. In this example, the routine home care rate, day 1 through day 60, would be $194.50. Now, this is the national rate for 2020. Multiply that times 60 days, you get $11,670. The routine home care rate for day 61 plus, the national rate was $153.72. So we take 120 days times the $153.72 to get $18,446.40. So we we have a total of 180 days, total amount of $30,116.40. We take that amount, divide it by 180 days, and we find out the average routine home care cost per day was $167.31. Now you will have to do this for your specific hospice using your payment rates, not the national rate. And you may actually use less than 120 days depending upon what the average length of stay can be at your hospice. You'll see that as we go along in the program. Calculating your agency-specific average length of stay. In this example, we're going to take the hospice annual cap at 9/30/2020 of $29,964.78 and divide it by your average routine home care daily rate of $167.31. We will arrive at an estimated average length of stay days of 179.10. We use this method because 99% of all hospice days are routine home care. If your hospice has a large percentage of general inpatient days, you will need to adjust your days down. In the above example, I would try to keep my average hospice patient days to 160 or less per patient. Remember, there is no limit to an actual patient for hospice length of stay. This limit is adjusted to an average of all patients. Now let's look at hospice cap management. In this scenario, we're going to look at Los Angeles first, and in this case we find that Los Angeles, we had the first 60 days, the payment rate was $235.83, much higher than our normal rate because they have a higher wage index. That is a total of $14,149.80. For the next rate, 84 days times the day 61 plus rate for Los Angeles is $186.39. So you multiply those together and you get $15,656.76. So we find out in Los Angeles, if you had 144 days, your total amount paid would be $29,806.56. The 2020 cap limit is $29,964.78. So you would be under the cap by $158.22. Now let's look at rural Florida. Well, the first 60 days, the rural Florida rate is $170.31. So you multiply 60 times the $170.31, that's $10,218.60. Then you will have 144 days times $136.40 for the Florida rate for day 61 plus to arrive at $19,641.60. So in Florida, you have 204 days, and if you had a patient for 204 days, your amount that Medicare would pay would be $29,860.20. Your cap is $29,964.78, so you'd be under the cap by $104.58. In the above example, you can see a patient in Los Angeles for an average of 144 days, but a hospice in rural Florida can see patients for an average of 204 days. This is why you need to develop a specific hospice average patient day limit for your individual hospice because it's based on your payment rates. Number 8, why the initial hospice cap report varies from the final cap report for cap year ending 9/30/2020. Well, first let's take a look at this example below. Patient A was admitted 6/1 of 2020. They were discharged 3/20/2021. So as of 9/30/2020, when we prepared that report, we had the patient for 4 months. They were totally on service for 4 months. We count one patient. But when we rerun, or when Medicare reruns that report as of August 31st, 2021, we found out that patient was actually on service for a total of 10 months, of which only 4 were in the cap year 2020. So we would receive 4 divided by 10, or 0.4 of a patient on that report. Patient B admitted 7/1/2020, discharged 4/30/2021. We had 3 months on service and a total of 3 months as of 9/30/2020, so we get 1 patient. But as of 8/31/2021, we find out we had that patient on service actually for 10 months, so we only get 3 months that apply to the year 9/30/2020, so that's a 0.3 that we're going to get for that final report. Patient C admitted 8/1/2020, discharged 6/30/2021. As of 9/30/2020, we had that patient on for 2 months of service, so we got a whole patient for that. When that report was rerun at 8/31/2021, 2021. That patient was actually on service for 11 months, of which only 2 of those months were for 2020 cap years. We would only receive 0.182. Patient D admitted 9/1/2020, discharged 7/31/2021. As of 9/30/2020, we had that patient for 1 month, so we got a whole patient for it. As of 8/31/2021, we found out that patient was on service for 11 months, so we get 1 divided by 11, or 0.91. Patient E, they were admitted 9/1/2020. They were discharged 8/31/2021. As of 9/30/2020, we had them for 1 month. We got 1 whole patient, but when they reran the report at 8/31/2021, we only have 1 divided by 12 because they were on service for 12 months, or 0.83. So as of 9/30/2020, when we ran that report, we had a total of 5 patients. But when Medicare reruns that report at 8/31/2021, we only have a total of 1.056. Now let's look at the impact of that. The impact of the changes. 5 patients originally, less the revised patients of 1.056. That's a variance of 3.944. If we multiplied that 3.944, doesn't sound like a big variance, times 29,964.78. That's a tremendous impact on your cap, 118,181.09. So if you were only under your cap 50,000 as of 9/30/2020, you'd now be over that cap by 68,181.09. So it's very important to watch where you are on your initial cap report, because it is going to change when that final cap report does run. I want to thank all of you for attending our webinar today. If you would like the handouts for this webinar, please email Margaret at DixonHSI.com, or you can email me, Richard at DixonHSI.com. If you have any questions about the webinar, please email Richard at DixonHSI.com, or feel free to give me a call at 321-394-5722. We also have some other free webinars on our website. For more information on those, go to www.DixonHSI.com. Thank you very much for attending our webinar.